I don't know what to say. Hello.
We were heading off on our first overnight bike camping trip of the season. Aaron and I took off from my studio, and we were meeting our friends downtown Akron.
Hello.
You feel like you're driving a Cadillac?
It does.
That's I've been riding the rally for, 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Ever since Skunk's Not Dead. I get on this and I'm like, woo!
You feel conspicuous?
Conspicuous?
Yeah.
Maybe a little. I guess I've just never thought about it that way. With a bikepacking setup, I think I always feel conspicuous because it's like, what is this dude doing?
I mean, if I walk through life feeling like I take up too much space, even though I'm a pretty small person, I just think I'm inconveniencing everybody and drawing all kinds of unwanted attention, and then I'm like, well, look at me up here riding my bicycle. That's how I feel. And I certainly feel more conspicuous with the bags on there.
Someone said we should make stickers that say white knuckle life because you said that in the last video.
I mean, it's true. And I don't think that people are used to this kind of cyclist profile in this area.
Yeah.
So then they're like, what's that clown doing?
Yeah.
And then,
well, apparently they're not on YouTube either because they can't tell that your bike fits you perfect.
I guess. But, yeah.
We were meeting at Sweet Mary's Bakery. We decided to get some coffee and snacks before we rolled. The other thing is we weren't leaving super early because our lunch destination would not be open in time, so we didn't get on the road till about noon on this day.
Because I rode all the way from my house.
We met up with Ben there, and then we were heading over to Dirty River Bicycle Works. That's where we were going to also meet up with our friend Brad, and that was going to be the crew for this overnighter. It was the Sunday going into Memorial Day on the Monday. In the last video, I showed exactly how I packed my bike, so that'll be the linked video at the end if you didn't see it and you want to know what my exact bag setup is. I did mention in that video I was going to talk about how this setup worked for me, and I'll do that here in a little while. But to start off, when I was talking to everybody else, they kind of had the same feeling as me as packing up for the first trip of the year. They felt like they were overpacked and just felt like, why didn't we have more room in my bike bags? So I don't know, maybe it's just getting back into the groove of things, but I'll dive more into that in a little bit. Welcome to Communist Block Akron. We were cutting directly through the University of Akron campus, but they had this Streamer U event going on. I forget the guy's name, but he's one of the biggest Twitch streamers, I guess, and he was teaching a class at the university about streaming and social media and all that stuff. So they actually had police and barricades, and so we had to kind of go around through a different part of campus. Our overall destination on this day was going to be Ben's parents' property. His family owns a big farm, and at the edges there's some woods and really cool spots to go camping. It is private property, so just keep that in mind. This is not a route you can really follow. We do this trip usually for the Swift campout, which lines up with the solstice, but our plans for this weekend had kind of fallen through, and with it being Memorial Day, there weren't other campgrounds really that weren't fully booked up within a reasonable distance, so we decided to switch this trip to this weekend because it's somewhere we could always camp, being that it's just friends. We've taken about every route we could think of to get out there, but this time we did go a completely different way and we made it a much longer day. Well, not much longer, but a longer day. If we would go the most direct route out to Garretsville area, it would be maybe 35-ish miles, a little less. The way we were going to this day had us closer to 50 miles. We were taking this route on the way out into Mogadore because we were heading to Crafted Artisan Meadery for lunch. Generally, when we head out here, we also use this as our first shakedown ride of the year to kind of see what works with our setups and what doesn't work. As I had mentioned in the last video, my setup, I was trying to do something that would be a little better for off-road bike packing. Even though this was going to be mostly a road trip, I just kind of wanted to see how the things would fit in my bag and how it would work out. If you've never been to Crafted, it is a great spot. So if you're local, definitely check it out. Or if you're planning a bike trip in the area, it's worth swinging by. If you like mead, a lot of their meads are a little bit on the sweeter side. I mean, it obviously is honey wine. I still wish they did a couple drier ones. Just like with cider, I tend to prefer that, but still they have great pizza. They have that great patio. And if you go inside, make sure you check it out because the bar area in this converted church is absolutely beautiful. We actually spent a long time sitting there just hanging out on the patio on this day, which worked out fine because we really didn't have to be anywhere early.
Remind me that I like Crafted a lot. I like it there. I will stay there and drink all day.
Erin was mentioning how she actually really liked Crafted. One of the things she had said is mead's not her thing, but one thing they do there is they have guest beer taps, and the other thing is they make mead cocktails, and she had a couple of those, which she really, really liked. Also, as mentioned, the pizza there is just fantastic. So packing my gear in a nutshell, I went with 2 Swift Zeitgeist, no racks, and then the same frame bag you could see there on Erin's bike. The idea being that if I was doing more off-road, as mentioned, that it'd just be a little tighter setup than my rack and pannier setup, which my panniers don't actually go with my rack, so they just tend to bounce around a little bit. They're great for gravel, they're great for road, and I like the capacity they have. They're not too big, they're about just right, but I really wanted something that if I try to do something a little more challenging and bouncy and that the setup would work a little better, because I've used this setup on my Raleigh before to do bike packing and some rough stuff out in Connecticut, and I really liked it. What I found is if the weather's going to be a little chilly like it was this night, that if I have my sleeping bag, I'm pretty tight on space. So if I was doing multiple days and it was chilly, I just don't think I would really be able to fit extra food and a little bit of extra clothes the way I needed to. It was fine for an overnighter where we weren't really planning on having any food on us besides some road snacks. A bunch of you had mentioned in the last video that I do have the 3-pack mount on the forks, and that would be a good way to go, is to just get some smaller bags on there. And I agree with that, and I think that's what I would probably have to do if I was going to try and use this setup in a chillier weather, longer situation. I do think, though, my sleeping bag is so big compared to my quilt that if I wanted to use this setup and it was going to be a summertime tour, that difference in size would make room for the coffee and cooking kit, the extra food, and the extra socks and stuff I would need for multi-day adventure. So I don't think this setup's a complete failure. It just doesn't really work if it's going to be an extended tour and a little colder, which is something we don't do quite as often. We are pretty fair weather tours, but sometimes we do go in the fall or in the spring like this when it is not quite as warm. This was one of those really interesting trips because you could see how beautiful the days are for riding, and it looks just like this on the next day you'll see as well. The thing was, when the clouds, which there aren't a lot here, but at other times there were, would cover the sun, the swing in temperature felt like it was 15, 20 degrees. We kept joking the entire trip. When the sun was out, we're like, oh my God, this is the hottest I've ever been in my life. What are we, in the Mojave Desert? And then there'd be some clouds and we'd be like, why is it Antarctica all of a sudden? So yeah, just these kind of weird temperature swings. It's been like that a lot this spring. Every time there's been sun out, because this has been one of the rainiest springs I could remember. So we got really lucky on this trip, because I will take a little bit of cooler weather over the rain when you're bike packing.
The finish.
When we got into Garretsville, absolutely nothing was open. We thought there would be one of the bars, Slim and Jimbo's here, would be open. We'd be able to get dinner. Not even the gas station. So we ended up backtracking and going to the grocery store, which was going to be open for about another 45 minutes. We just grabbed sandwiches and beer there and decided to head over to our camp spot. So still all worked out, but we're pretty surprised by that. Erin was trying to figure out how to get her bag on her bike since, like I said, we were already packed pretty full, and the backpack solution ended up working out. I carry, as I mentioned in the last video, a musette bag, and so I was able to throw my food and beer over my shoulder with that little bag. We come out to Garretsville in March for the Road Apple Roubaix. This year it was cold and it was snowing like crazy. I even said in that video, I can't wait till we're coming out here closer to the solstice and it's beautiful and it's green and the weather is nice. So to have that memory in my mind is always like, heck yeah, this is so much nicer. For that Road Apple Roubaix, it was so snowy, they actually detoured us from that bike path onto that road that was out there. So, and it was also the first time for Road Apple I'd ever done the shorter route. They had actually recommended it because they were saying the northern section was getting hit with snowbelt snow. So, yeah, it was a strange Road Apple this year. But again, so much better to be out here when the weather is beautiful. We are definitely lucky to have a friend who has a property like this that we're able to use because it's such a cool spot. You'll see this is, I think they call it the point, but that's kind of a ravine back there with probably sandstone cliffs. We've even hiked down the creek and there's a waterfall back there. So yeah, really cool spot. I always go straight to work when we get to camp. I like to get everything set up and done before we even start chilling. So pick the sites and get the tent up, do everything, set up the chair. It was nice to get a big fire going on this evening. As I said, it was a little chilly. It got down to about 42 degrees. I actually stayed totally warm. My tent, when I opened it up in the morning, I could feel the cold air come in, so it really retained a lot of heat. I was surprised by that, but again, I had my sleeping bag and I slept in my down jacket. I did have my sleeping bag liner as well, but I didn't need it on this night. In the morning, we decided before we broke everything down, we would ride into town. We called the local coffee shop that has breakfast sandwiches too, and they were open. The reason we decided to not load up before heading into town is the tents were a little dewy, so we figured why not let them sit out and dry, because then we could pack up dry stuff. And we kind of had to head back in the same direction anyways. The little community parade happened to be going on while we were in Garretsville, so I went outside to take some pictures. A little, everyone commented on Instagram, Norman Rockwell vibe. As far as heading back to Akron after we got everything packed up, we took the simplest route back. Everybody's legs were a little bit tired for our first loaded bikepacking trip of the year. As mentioned, it was about 50 miles on the first day, and we were all feeling it a little bit. Like, no one was really hurting or anything, but just, yeah, you know, you could tell you put in a different kind of effort, as usually happens. So the simplest way is kind of just taking the Headwaters Trail. There's one wrong road called Peck Road, and then we were back onto other bike paths. So I think I only ended up with 34 miles on the day going back this direct route. So we will have one more trip planned, just an overnighter before we do our longer vacation of the year. We usually do that around the 4th of July time. As mentioned, both of those are going to be more of road touring or maybe some gravel at the most rough. So I do think I'm going to get the rack back on, do the pannier system, so I'll be able to do that for a shakedown ride. Might do a little packing video for that one as well. Next up on the channel will be a trip out to Ann Arbor. I'm heading out there for the Ann Arbor Handmade Bike Show. If the rain holds off, we're also planning on mountain biking out there. I originally had planned to pull my fenders off the bike, but even the Wednesday after the trip you're watching here, we had been out in the rain and having the fenders on was so nice. When I was out at a trip in New York, I had the fenders on and we hit some rough stuff and they really weren't bothering me that much. I've since kind of adjusted them to retighten them up again. So I'm kind of considering leaving the fenders on the Gunner year round. We'll see. But I definitely think for the bike tour, I think they'll fit with the rack, and it'd be really nice if you get those rainy days. Fenders just make such a difference to keep that road spray off of you. Ames had a race on Sunday, so she just ended up meeting us out on the Portage hike and bike on Monday. We decided to stop in Kent for lunch. We had to do some searching around again to find something open on Memorial Day. The Paninis was kind of the only thing open. I've never even been in the Paninis in Kent, but everything was decent. They had a good beer selection. Our sandwiches were all fine. Typically, we like to go to the local breweries and stuff like that. If you follow this channel, that's no surprise. But none of them were open on this day. For the rest of the way back, we picked up the Freedom Trail, and then we crossed over through a park onto the hike and bike trail. It was our friend Chrissy's birthday, so we were messaging her husband, who owns Asterisk and Akron Coffee Roasters, if they wanted to meet up. They ended up saying yes, so we were heading back to Cuyahoga Falls, where we were going to meet up and have a quick birthday drink with Chrissy and Albert. I've said it a million times in my videos, but the Summit County hike and bike in this section is so fun to ride. It's just a little bit twisty and up and down, and if you kind of time your riding right, you get enough speed on the downhills to get yourself most of the way up the next uphill. Even more important when you are on loaded bikes and trying to save energy, or at this point just a little bit tired. So this was a great first overnighter. I've mentioned this before, but also no matter where you're riding, a big deal for me is who you're riding with. So even though this route back is something we've done a million times, we're just having a lot of fun, talking the whole time. Unfortunately, one guy on the internet thinks you're not supposed to do that while you're bike packing, but we like to have fun. So I hope you like to have fun when you ride your bike as well. So everybody had ridden from home, so after we were at Asterisk, everyone was going their own way, so that was kind of our goodbyes. I am just a mile and a half from there, so it was just back through the neighborhood and back to the studio and back to my Edmond. So thanks as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Give this video a like and check out our little store down below if you want to support the channel. Thanks. Peace.